Okay. Welcome to TruthIsWhatMatters.com. I'm your host, Brad Snell, and along with my co-host, Ray Luff, we hope to put to bed some of the questions that we have from our viewers, as well as some of the emails we get. And especially we've had an email from an Adam Bethune who wants to call in on Skype and talk about evolution. So we hope to rig that up probably in the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Well, when we get our Harold back, we'll have to check with him, but I'm thinking
Yes.
it'll be in the fall.
Because Adam did email me and he wants to really contact us by Skype and have be involved in the conversation. So Adam, we didn't forget about you. We're just arranging the Skype call. And on the second half of TruthIsWhatMatters.com, we have two very special guests come all the way from Saskatchewan, Lizette and Paul Smith. And we're going to talk a little bit to them about what it's like to be a Christian and how they became Christian. And Lizette has a very interesting, and she did come from a Catholic background, so we're going to talk to her a little bit on the second half of the show, how she became from the Catholic background into being a Christian. So that's the second half of TruthIsWhatMatters.com. On the first half, we're going to talk to Ray a little bit about something that was in the Arab Banner in Newmarket. Something that a lot of people were complaining about, religious tracts that were given out at a town function. And the woman in question had a lot to say about these religious tracts, how they had the logo of Walmart on them, and underneath the logo there was some religious printing about you'll be going to hell and Jesus and Satan and heaven. And the woman was quite upset that her child was exposed to this, to this religious paraphernalia. I don't like to call it paraphernalia, but tracts from this person that was holding the function. Now I'm thinking it could have been worse. The woman, the people there could have been held out, given out pornography or given out brochures about body rub parlors or something like that. But they chose to give out religious literature, and the women and the parents were quite offended about that. But you have something to say about that, don't you, Ray? About that giving out... Now, they did not know. They thought they were duped because they had the Walmart sticker on. They thought they were giving out gift cards and things to the kids. As soon as the mothers and the parents read it, they were religious tracts. And it strikes me that they could fall on some sort of copyright infringement from Walmart.
Well,
that was a mouthful, wasn't it?
I think you carried the whole topic, so all I have to say is amen.
Well, Paul and his wife got me revved up before the show. We were talking off camera about a few things, so that's kind of gone with right now. But,
let me try to say something with all the... You gave me a lot of setup there, so I have to figure out which part I'll try to answer. There's a bunch of things that were written in our town about people that would wish that activities of witnessing would be restricted to Christians for putting out their views. And some of the specifics you talked about included that this particular tract the person handed out was saying something like that knowing God is even better than going to Walmart. Mm-hmm. I think it was something like that. Like you can all the shopping you can do at Walmart, but think of all the good things. And we're giving them a plug for free. Think about all the good things that you can get out of coming to know the Lord Jesus Christ, kind of thing. So I don't know quite how they ended up with this angle where they wanted to mention Walmart as if it's a great place, and we don't want to put Walmart down at all. But I don't particularly agree with them saying anything about Walmart. Right. So I think they just made a mistake that they would mention a company name. The company probably didn't endorse that. No. But apart from that, the complaints went much further than that. And they were basically... that we don't want our children to have an opportunity to hear the message that was on the other side of the tract. And the other side of the tract was saying about how God loves you so much that he doesn't want you to suffer. And that people that don't know God will suffer for all of eternity, but if you know God, then you're going to have a great outcome for all of eternity. And so it was expressing the person's concern that you might wish to know what your eternal destination is after this life on earth. Why is it that parents don't want to let their children know a little bit about this? Because when I went to public school, though it was completely, and they had more than a horse and buggy then. I'm not that old yet, but they were religious taught. I went to a regular public school in Toronto, and there was a lot of you had your morning prayer when you first started, and the bell rang,
and we even got the strap then. So, you know, there was a lot of discipline in the schools, and religious prayer, and every morning you had to say a prayer. And this was the public school system, by the way.
Yeah.
But now the parents do not want to show their kids or any of their family any kind of, they rather see Harry Potter or some sort of things that are going on, sort of like ghostly images or horror or something like that, or evil things going on in the media, but they don't want to show them religious values and religious programs. They seem somehow that they shouldn't know. What's the problem with the media and the kids these days?
Well, I believe the word is political correctness. There's people that think that they're protecting their children by not letting them have all the information that they should have while they're growing up. Children shouldn't be sheltered for finding out what people believe that are people of faith. And each person should be able to make up their own minds whether they would like to come into a personal relationship with God, as this tract was asking them to do. And I don't think that anyone should corner a young child and say, you can't leave this room until you've made a decision about this. But presenting an opportunity to find out a religious view, I don't think should be restricted. We should have the free speech to say these views. And the ones that are concerned about presenting such a view have just as much concern about their children going to the school and being taught that there's 4 or 5 different sex choices now to make as a child. They're teaching them right in pre-kindergarten things like this. Like they're saying it's okay for 2 men to be together or 2 women to be together, or they're claiming that you could be a male who thinks they're a female but is interested in other males, but only interested or in other females as a male because you think that you're a female and that you're like they talk about all these confusions. They have it identified as about 5 different types of genders, and they want to teach our children, and they don't want the parents to have a say in what's being taught in the sex education programs. So people of faith get concerned about what our children are learning in the school system. And secondly, you mentioned the school system used to give them some information about the Bible, which it won't do anymore. And so they look for opportunities to try to reach the children or all of society through other events. And this event we're talking about, they had a booth of their own. If you came to their booth, they were going to tell you about what they believed, and they had permission from the town. And the guy had a little card that he was handing out, and it was and I think a young child came up and said, "Oh, I'll help you hand some out." And he said, "Okay." Well, everyone in the crowd was trying to get one at the end of the performance. And this child
because they thought
grabbed a handful and handed them out.
It was a Walmart card, though. They think they were deceived by this whole Walmart logo, that they were getting some sort of gift certificate by Walmart.
Well, the parents claimed that.
Yes, that's what they claimed.
The people that were doing it didn't intend it to have that outcome. So, as I said earlier, I think it was a mistake to bring Walmart into it at all. It was like, how wonderful it is to know God. It's like walking into a big store like Walmart, everything that's, But I think after you get past that, there's an agenda behind the people that are trying to shut that down, because they're saying our children should be politically correct, so that we're not allowed to tell them those things about life. You could say the same thing as a Christian parent. I'd like my children never to learn about evolution, because we teach creation in our home. So, I think if there's the freedom for our children to go to school and learn all these options, and especially if you go to the booth of somebody that's presenting one of the options, people should have the right to present their options. I think the only thing that they did wrong was to bring in Walmart's name into what they did. And I don't think anyone should be coerced into any of this. But I don't think that the remedy they're looking for is to somehow criminalize the activity of letting people know a view, a religious view, and I don't think that should be done. And I have a vested interest in this. When I was a teenager, I used to go down and hand out tracts on the streets downtown in Toronto. I know the scene of going to fairs and handing out tracts and talking with people. And our guests that we're going to have shortly used to come and join me in doing that as well. So
Now, did you get any kind of interference with the police force when they tell you, like, okay, Ray, you've had your time here, you can move on, and you just moved on down the street?
It was a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. We didn't want to stop any business, so we'd stop in front of a business to hand out some tracts and give a quick speech and hand them out. The cops would show up, and we'd say, oh, we know the bylaw is 10 minutes, we can't stop anywhere for more than 10 minutes. We've been here for 6 minutes so far. In 3 minutes we're moving. And they'd say, oh fine, we're glad you're cooperating with us. And we'd go across the road, and they'd be watching us from a distance. As long as we kept moving every 10 minutes, we were fine. So it was always, because we were on a street in front of stores. In a fair, it might be different than that. But we worked with whatever the...
As soon as you work with the local authorities, things will work out.
It was a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. The thing was that we didn't want to stop a particular store from being able to run their operation. Like by standing in front of their store, no one would go in because we were there, right? That was the only concern back then, not that our speech shouldn't be given out.
Playing about religious tracts that were given out at a town function, and the woman in question had a lot to say about these religious tracts, how they had the logo of Walmart on them, and underneath the logo there was some religious printing about you'll be going to hell and Jesus and Satan and heaven. And the woman was quite upset that her child was exposed to this, okay. Welcome to TruthIsWhatMatters.com. I'm your host, Brad Snell, and along with my co-host, Ray Luff, we hope to put to bed some of the questions that we have from our viewers, as well as some of the emails we get, and especially we've had an email from an Adam Bethune who wants to call in on Skype and talk about evolution. So we hope to rig that up probably in the next 2 to 3 weeks.
When we get our Harold back, we'll have to check with him. But
religious paraphernalia, I don't like to call it paraphernalia, but tracts from this person that was holding the function. Now I'm thinking it could have been worse. The woman, the people there could have been held out, given out pornography or given out brochures about body rub parlors or something like that. But they chose to give out religious literature, and
I'm thinking it'll be in the fall.
Because Adam did email me and he wants to really contact us by Skype and be involved in the conversation. So Adam, we didn't forget about you. We're just arranging the Skype call. And on the second half of TruthIsWhatMatters.com, we have two very special guests come all the way from Saskatchewan, Lizette and Paul Smith. And we're going to talk a little bit to them about what it's like to be a Christian and how they became Christian. And Lizette has a very interesting, and she did come from a Catholic background, so we're going to talk to her a little bit on the second half of the show, how she became from the Catholic background into being a Christian. So that's the second half of TruthIsWhatMatters.com. On the first half, we're going to talk to Ray a little bit about something that was in the Era banner in Newmarket. Something that a lot of people were complaining